Something significant has just happened. Happened on Saturday. It's something that I said was happen, that I expected to happen. And again, it's not anything magical. It's just when all incentives in the world are pointing to something, it usually goes that way. It's like water down a creek or something, or water down the street. There's certain areas or grooves that the water is going to go down because those grooves are available. It's like light on the fabric of space. Light always goes in a straight line unless something is bending it, meaning if something is bending space, then light will go. But from light's perspective, it's in a straight line. I hope that makes sense. Donald Trump was speaking at the Student Action Summit, Tampa, Florida, on Saturday. Now, I have said on more than one occasion that when it gets to the point of a candidate like Trump, who comes out and in the same way that he was able to attack Jeb Bush on the record of his brother, war criminal George Bush, that the same thing would happen here with Joe Biden. It is as clear as day. Meaning, I'll give it to you the way I frame it. Mainstream media hates his guts. I don't even like him all that much. I think he should be impeached and should be sitting in a cage right now. But all things being equal, mainstream media hates his guts. Okay, fair enough. Mainstream media was not able to stop Donald Trump from taking the political life of 20 other Republicans and then crawling over the corpse, politically speaking, of Hillary Clinton in order to get in office. Didn't matter that all of that coverage was negative against him. He was still able to do it. Fast forward to today. The latest reports on the perspective of the American public to media is extremely low. Meaning the credibility that they give mainstream media, and Lord knows what they give late night television media, is in the pits. This institution that was there in order to shape and describe reality to people is basically falling not in the American public's perspective. And it is earned weapons of mass destruction in itself in Iraq, the Vietnam War, and the way that it was reporting that initially, basically leading us to that war. All of the things that we know right now about Iraq and what they were reporting versus the reality of it in and of itself with 1 million people dying should have put it into that by itself. By itself, that should have been enough. But then you get Trump and Russia for 3 years where they go on this tear about Donald Trump working with the Russians in order to get elected only based on their own rules for him to be acquitted. Now, I'm talking about from standpoint of the Mueller investigation. Do you realize how significant that was? If Mueller would have came back with anything, it didn't matter whether it was real or imagined, they would have used that as a pretext for a soft coup against a sitting president they didn't like. One political party working with the media institution and let's say the intelligence arm of this country to get rid of a sitting president they didn't particularly like. I didn't like Trump. By the same token, I get how disastrous that is. For that to even take place, that is disastrous. Him getting off, just a quirk of luck. I'm trying to get across the gravity of this. Meaning, when Democrats did that, then Donald Trump turns around and basically does the same thing, but he does it loudly. He doesn't go through all the political machinations in order to make it look like a soft coup. He just says it. I was entirely cheated. This was massive fraud. The ghost of Hugo Chavez was working with the CIA and working with the Democratic Party in order to get me. It became that. But still, I'm making a point that the fact that we are here is problematic. Besides the point. Donald Trump, when he ran on an American First agenda. America first. Did he mean it? No, he didn't mean it. But did he run on it? Yes. Did he change his political language in order to make it seem like he meant it? Yes. All right. If a person is running on an American First message, the mainstream media, for the most part, has been decimated in regards to its credibility. So whatever they write about it is almost less important. The Ukraine issue has basically bubbled up into the mainstream where everybody is talking about it. Media was entirely focused on it, and media was lying for 3 months. They were lying for 3 months. Now all of them sound like Radio Sputnik. All of them are sounding like we were telling you the situation was on the ground. And so now that they're sounding this way, and you've been lying for 3 months, okay, what does that do to credibility again? What does that do to credibility again? So Donald Trump is running in this media environment where it lacks credibility. Donald Trump is running with an American First policy. The mainstream media has taken a Ukraine First policy. What are we going to see here? Think about it. Think about it for yourself. What are we going to see here from the lane that Donald Trump is going to occupy if he accepts that the American public is not okay, regardless of the way the media paints this, of Joe Biden sending $60 billion to Ukraine under any circumstance when we have our own issues, especially if those issues are going to create inflation, especially if those issues are going to create food insecurity. The number of people that are basically going to food banks has exploded. And Joe Biden has videos where he's basically saying the American public is going to have to pay for this indefinitely. Indefinitely. And Ukraine matters that much more. Are you insane as a president to say that? Why do you think Bojo is gone? Why do you think Macron has lost his governing majority? Why do you think Schultz will be on his way out when the election takes place? Why do you think the Italian government has collapsed and will not be the only one? Why do you think Sri Lanka has gone up in flames? I mean, you can go around the world and find the various effects that this particular economic war has had on a global and political opinion from the standpoint of the economic sphere, and the long-term geopolitical effects it is going to have in Europe in regards to the political and economic destabilization that's taken place while simultaneously BRIC nations ascendant. That's your context of your world is changing. Even Tony Blair gets it. Even Tony Blair gets it. The point that I'm making here is that Donald Trump is going to run on an American first policy at a time where the president of the United States has taken a Ukraine first policy. And which do you think is going to win? You tell me. You tell me. Take your crystal ball out. You tell me. You have 50 billion. We have sent more money to Ukraine than Russia spends on their entire military budget. Put that shit in context. And despite sending $60 billion, all the weapons in the world that the West has at their disposal where they can send, and starting an economic war where the full might of the West has been exerted in this case, being basically a man shoots his load. Russia is using an expeditionary force against all of that, working with the Donbass republics, and it is kicking Ukraine in the teeth. And that is with Ukraine marshaling all of the forces at its disposal as an entirety of the country, and can't beat an expeditionary force working with Donbass republics. The point that I'm making to you is, not only did you do all of that, you're failing in that process in both ways. The European Union has just passed policy to basically pull back on some of the sanctions. The European Union blinks. The European Union blinks. They realized that they were isolated. You had all of these other countries in the world that weren't taking the propaganda to the West, meaning your own local populations would accept what you're telling them because you were basically shaping the story in a way to give them a perspective. Fair enough. What does that mean in Africa? Doesn't mean shit in Africa. What does it mean in South America? Doesn't mean shit in South America. What does it mean in the Middle East? Doesn't mean shit in the Middle East. Meaning, you have isolated yourself. And you've isolated yourself in a way where the sanctions and the war that you basically have provoked are adversely affecting African nations, South American nations, and in some cases, at the very least, filling the coffers of the Middle East. Point is, those places need food. Those places need energy. And you've basically taken action that has undermined their ability to feed their populations and to get their populations energy, let alone afford those items. So yes, you're isolated. And so yeah, the European Union comes out with this, basically pulling back. Lavrov comes out and says, we never asked them to take back sanctions. We never asked them to take back sanctions. That's called, that is a dickish statement, but it is a great statement and perfectly warranted. We didn't tell them to do that. We didn't need them to do that. We didn't need them to do that. Think about what that means. Think about what that means. Think about what he's saying there. It's so understated, but God is on point. We never asked them to back away on their sanctions. They did that on their own. Just saying. Oh, God. There's a confidence. I love confidence. I love it. I love it. There's a bravado about it. It puts me in mind of the guys at my barbershop when we used to play chess. Yeah, I love it. My point here is Donald Trump is going to put his foot into that. He's going to put his foot into that. Fair enough. The media doesn't want to report it. Fair enough. I am Donald Trump. I am saying we should not be putting that much money into those countries. And then we'll even go so far as to say Europe is taking advantage of us. Oh, I love it. I love it. Europe is not taking advantage of anything. Biden is the one that is driving this process where you basically drag these countries into an economic situation where they are getting destroyed economically. It's not Europe taking advantage of us. But there's a nice twist to it for Donald Trump to be like, Europe is taking advantage of us on this war. We've given all of this money. We're $35 trillion in debt. This war wouldn't have happened on my watch. It's going to be that. It's going to be that. It's going to be Americans are paying for inflation. Look at what they're paying for food. Look at the number of food banks that's basically taking place. No, Donald Trump doesn't give a shit about any of this. He doesn't. Doesn't matter. The politics writes itself. Politics writes itself. It's so exciting. What he is going to do is, by virtue of Donald Trump taking a political position on Ukraine, taking a tact on it, all of those people in the Trump sphere that might have been curious, might have been a little edgy about going there because of the way the mainstream media has basically landed on one point, will no longer be edgy about going there. They won't be edgy about going there. Their main guy has put his foot in it. And what Donald Trump is feeling is what I suspect the rest of the public is feeling. You have done something. You've done something. Your actions, meaning Biden and those idiots in Europe, that is adversely affecting us domestically, that has damaged our credibility around the world in regards to what we could do. Like I said, power is where people think power resides. The moment that you shoot your load in a way that basically decimates you, then power, people don't believe that it resides in the way that it resided prior, meaning you've destroyed American credibility around the world with this fool's errand war and this economic war on top of it. Donald Trump is not wrong for bringing that up and pointing that out. And it's something that I suspect the American public feels when they're looking at this country feel demoralized at the failure in Afghanistan and the embarrassment that took place. What is taking place here right now in regards to the inflation, or for that matter, the price of fuel and the increase in everything else? What will take place on issues of fertilizer that they're basically trying to unravel at this point? And even issues of grain and famine. I mean, yeah, Ukraine has a certain amount of grain that they can give out, but the majority of that is coming from Russia. And as long as those ports are mined and everything else, that will not be on the world market. I suspect that what they're trying to do with the EU is a smoke screen for getting rid of that. Meaning they want Russia to be able to export their grain. I suspect that's their issue. But beyond that point, my point here is Biden or whoever is running will have to own that as a Democrat. That was your party. Those are the things that you are basically backing. And Donald Trump is going to take somewhat of an opposite position. Whatever he does, by the way, when he gets in office, is secondary to the point of the position he is going to take when you run in this race. He's going to feel the pulse of the country, and he is going to recognize the public is pissed off. You have done things politically that have had adverse consequences to us. And your justification for this is Ukraine. We don't even know where it is. And that's your justification for it? Look, what the public is going to say is, if Vladimir Putin wants to invade Ukraine, that is unfortunate. By the same token, we should not be suffering for it, nor will the country that prides itself on individuality is going to accept that they should be suffering individually for a country that they know nothing about, that is not and should not be in our sphere of influence, considering we're on the other side of the fucking globe. I could be wrong. I don't think I am. This is Trump, and this is him at, what is it called? Student Action Summit in Tampa Bay, Florida. I'll let him take it. Listen to his argument.
What's happening with our country, if you take a look at what was going down.
Wait, I'm sorry. I don't like to... I assume that Donald Trump is full of shit as a basis of operation. So, I don't need to hear his whole speech. Yes, the speech is entertaining, but no, I just want to hear the part where he's getting to what I'm saying. So yes, I'm playing one double speed to get through the entire speech. All right, let's try this one more time. This is Trump.
Billions and billions of dollars came pouring in, and ultimately we took in $430 billion, and that's why NATO is functioning now and able to do. But just one other thing, Ukraine would have never happened under the Trump administration, would have never have happened. Russia would have never done what they did. They would have, and they didn't. You know, people say, even I saw that Chuck Todd, Sleepy Eyes Chuck Todd, was saying recently, he said, you know, Trump is perhaps the most consequential president. Now, he was talking about Roe v. Wade, most consequential president. I said, we also had a great decision on guns. We had a great decision on religious liberty. And we had a great decision on the environment, which they want to destroy our country with. But if you take a look at what was happening with our country, if you take a look at what was going down, we were being taken advantage of by Europe. Now, if you look at Ukraine now, we've so far given more than $60 billion to Ukraine. Well, the European countries, who are obviously far more affected than us, have given a tiny fraction of that number. So why is that? Because I know I could have gone over there and said, listen, you're going to put up the same money or more money than us, and they would have done it gladly. But we just give money out, and we don't, you know, we have $35 trillion in debt. We have all of these problems, and we're handing money out. And honestly, that was something because right now it's much tougher to solve because I guess they have 35 times, Russia has 35 times the firepower. And they're looking to obliterate the weapons as we send them in. They're obliterating those weapons. And a lot of bad things are happening. But it's a much tougher deal to solve now than previous. But think of it. You had me 4 years as president. You never had a problem with this. Nobody even talked about it. Nobody even talked about it. And in all fairness to Chuck Todd, he said that. He was interviewing the Secretary of State. He said, how come this never happened as it was really heating up? How come this never happened under the Trump administration? And then I added something to that. How come North Korea, which is now doing things that they shouldn't be doing?
The man has a point. I am not a fan of Trump under any circumstances. Like I said, I thought Trump should have been impeached. I think it is disastrous that he has been given this pathway. Look, think of it this way. What I mean pathway? Jeremy Corbyn was running against Boris Johnson in the UK. This was, a few years ago. Boris Johnson, this was immediately during the Brexit conversation, the Brexit fight. Boris Johnson said, I am freedom, I am justice. If you are going to take a vote, I, Boris Johnson, am going to live by it. It's a referendum. The public has chosen. Brexit means Brexit. We're going to leave. Will Jeremy Corbyn say that? Now, he's allowed to take that tack, right? The public has chosen I am the avatar of the will of the public itself. That's who I am, Boris Johnson. Jeremy Corbyn could not say that. He could not say that. So in a country that prides itself as a democracy, that has taken a referendum, painful referendum, one guy says, I am going to fulfill that regardless of what that means. The other guy, weekly, the National Health Service will be under attack if Boris Johnson wins. This is not a conversation about the National Health Service. You might be entirely right. You are right. He's going to carve it up. Secondary to the point. Conversation we're having, the fight we're having right now is on Brexit. Can you say that you will fulfill the obligations of the referendum? Yes or no? Do you believe in democracy? Meaning that argument, whether or not Boris Johnson was the avatar of democracy and everything else, doesn't matter. He's out on the rail right now. At the time, though, he was able to take that tack, that framing of himself and what his role and responsibility was going to be when he was running in the office. And it was a killer argument because that argument was right. Donald Trump taking this argument, you heard those people boo when they heard $50 or $60 billion. So you're like, boo! We have $35 trillion in debt. And we said that much money. He will start to add inflation. He will start to add the cost of energy. He will start to add the hit to manufacture. He will start to add all of that stuff. And he would frame it as if Europe is taking advantage of the United States. This is a campaign message. And as a campaign message, it is brutal. It is brutal. It is one that is impugning the mainstream media. It is one that is impugning the administration in and of itself. And it's one that the American public, I suspect strongly, feels is right. They feel it in their guts. They may hate Trump. They may hate him. By the same token, Biden is sitting at 29% approval. And yeah, if Donald Trump was impeached, this would not be an issue. But it is an issue now. I have no idea what is going to happen to this country going into the foreseeable future. I do not have a good impression of it. Regardless of who wins, whether it's Biden, whether Biden lives to make it to the point where he can even run again in the next race, whether he's politically there enough to run in the next race, who knows? To me, all of those things are up in the air, and I'm terrified for this country as a result. I'm going to say like, I'm going to say share, and I am going to say subscribe. Thanks all. Let's see. This